From Fox City Stadium in Grand Chute, Wisconsin, I'm Pat Coleman along with Jim Dixon for D3Baseball.com as we wrap up Sunday at the 2018 Division III World Series, a day in which two teams needed to win 2 games to advance to just to survive, advance into Monday. And those teams did so. Randolph-Macon did so by defeating Misericordia, eliminating the Cougars, and then forcing a second game on Monday against UT Tyler. Texas Lutheran had to do the same thing. They had to outlast Swarthmore, and they did so, and then they beat Concordia Chicago to force that series into Monday as well. But Jim, first let's talk about the Randolph-Macon side of the bracket, for lack of a better term. The Yellow Jackets, which who came out, back on Friday, found their way into this bracket with their struggles offensively. Again, came out early and swung the sticks.
They needed to start early, and that's just what the coach wanted to do. In fact, they're going to be the home team on Monday, and the coach is thinking, maybe I want to be the away team because they want to get an early start.
The away teams have definitely jumped out and almost exclusively have won in the 11 of the first 12 games have been won by the team that is batting first. Another big day for Randolph-Macon for Jeff Butler and also for Cole Miglerini, who had a home run in the first inning, then had a double as the Yellow Jackets put up a 2-run double as the Yellow Jackets put up an 8-run spot in the 6th inning. They ended up winning that game 14-6. You remember as we go back to Friday where Ryan Duporn got on base all 5 times and had no support basically behind him. Nobody moved him around. Nobody got him in. Completely different story the next several games for Randolph-Macon here at the series.
It really has been. And if you look at Duporn's numbers, they're really not as good as they were. But even though he's not performing at 100%, he's not getting 4 for 4 scores, the rest of the team is picking him up. And so it's not just a team of one player. It is a team of players. So it's a team win, and that's what Randolph-Macon is getting.
Ryan Yergin with a home run. He is 3 for 4 with 3 runs driven in. Cole Grindy 4 for 5, a big stick at the bottom of the lineup. Also drove in 3 runs and scored twice himself. Matthew Nichols got the win. He improved to 6-0. And Kyle Milan with the loss in relief for Misericordia as their season ends at 37-15. Randolph-Macon came back several hours later to play UT Tyler. UT Tyler had come through unbeaten in the top half of the bracket in bracket 1. And it took a couple innings, but Randolph-Macon did get its crooked number on the board. They put up 4 in the 3rd. And, in all honesty, one big swing in that. And Texas Tyler never quite had an answer. They lost that game 6-1.
They really didn't have an answer. And that one big swing came up the back of Rick Spires. And he hit it to the deepest part of the field, and he just kept running, and he rounded second base, and he saw the coach waving him home. He says, well, if coach thinks I can make it home, he just put it in the second gear, and he did an inside the park home run. And we have not had one in quite some time here at the Division III World Series.
A lot of fun to watch. If you go to the front page of D3Baseball.com, assuming you're watching this in a relatively timely manner after the game, you'll see the reaction shot of his teammates coming out to meet him, mob him at home plate. That would capped off that 4-run rally. If you click inside and read the rest of the story, you'll see the reverse angle. You'll see the look on Spire's face as he dives in safely at home plate. So 4 RBIs of the 6 runs scored for Rick Spires, and Randolph-Macon survives and advances into Monday. So that is now a winner-take-all game between Randolph-Macon and UT Tyler for the championship of Bracket 1 on Monday. We'll talk a little bit more about that coming up in just a minute, but let's talk about Bracket 2 also, Jim. Texas Lutheran came into the day. They had struggled offensively after getting some runs early on Worcester on Friday, then had really struggled with the sticks, and even in winning against Swarthmore, they struggled with the sticks as well. But obviously the story of this game, Jim, is just the unending nature of it, first off. So many things to talk about in a 3-2 13-inning win for the Bulldogs. I start with the pitching, of course. Anytime you give up 2 runs in 13 innings, we got to talk about the guys who were getting that done. Landon Weatherly got the start. He went the first 7, gave up 5 hits, gave up 1 of those runs. Dylan Morrell, the closer, came on and threw 5 1/3 innings in relief, scattered 6 hits, gave up 1 run. He needed to be relieved at the end by Drew Waller, but really just fantastic pitching performances for Texas Lutheran.
Usually what we see on Saturday of the series is we see a lot of offense. You don't expect to see a game like this. And it was kind of refreshing to see some pitching on a day that was surrounded by some offense.
On the opposite side for the Garnet, Ryan Warm, 7 innings pitched, gave up 2 runs. Jack Corkery, the closer, came out of the pen. He threw the final 6. Just didn't get any run support. He gave up 1 run. That ended up being the run in the top half of the 13th that won the game. Now, this came in which Andrew Witten led off the top half of the 13th inning with a double off of the wall in left center, and eventually came around to score when Riley Schaefer knocked him home. Let's talk about Schaefer for a little bit, Jim, because this is a guy who, is obviously a D3Baseball.com All-American, one of the top hitters in the nation. Really struggled here in Appleton, went 0 for his first 9, and then has basically turned it on since.
He has the most hits of any player in Division III this year, and he was chasing a record. And that has stood for quite some time at Texas Lutheran.
Yep.
And I think he was pressing a little bit, and he realized that that's the case. But he got his hit, he got his record, and now he's starting to hit the ball.
He ended up 3 for 7 in that game. Obviously, lots of at-bats in that game. And we'll talk a little bit more about his production in the game that followed coming up in just a moment. But he had the game-winning RBI, knocking the ball through in the top half of the 13th inning to bring Witten home. For Swarthmore, Cole Beaker, 3 for 6 with an RBI. Jackson Roberts, big story here. Jackson Roberts goes 3 for his first 4. Then they pinch run for him in the 8th inning, the inning in which Swarthmore tied it up at 2 apiece. And then, of course, removed their best hitter, their best power threat, a guy with double-digit home runs. And that spot came up in the order 2 more times, and they weren't able to do anything with it.
Cole Beaker got on base, hit a double with one out.
In the 13th, the bottom half. Yeah.
This would be the spot that Roberts would be driving him in, and Roberts wasn't there. You take chances when you sit there and pinch hit and pinch run, but it would have been nice to have Roberts to see if he could have put this game and put it into the 14th inning.
Nonetheless, great season for Swarthmore, really unprecedented as it finishes at 38-11. Morrell with the win, he improves to 3-0. Waller got a save, his 4th, and Corkery with the loss as he fell to 4-2. They came back later that night, Texas Lutheran did, and the Bulldogs in a real back-and-forth game. A lot of stuff to talk about, and maybe still processing this game mentally ourselves. I'm doing the clock thing again. It's 1:38 in the morning as we record this, which is only about an hour and 40 minutes after we were at this point last night, right? Schaefer with a big night, 2 for 5, 3 runs batted in. God, so many things to talk about. Let's see. Zach Perry gets the start. He's a reliever for Texas Lutheran. I asked Coach Greg Burnett about this in the postgame because Clint Johns then followed him and pitched really stunning relief, 6 1/3 innings, gave up 2 runs. And he said something which I found really interesting. He said that sometimes John struggles in the first inning, and they wanted to basically let someone else pitch the first inning.
They felt that he comes out and he pitches better coming out of bullpen. And so they put him in a bullpen. And you might say, why not start him? Looking back, maybe that might be the way to go. But the coach made the decision, and it turned out to actually be something that did not hurt them. And they certainly walked away with a win and another chance to play tomorrow.
Back and forth game, Concordia jumps out 3-0. Texas Lutheran ties it up. Concordia answers with a single run in the bottom of the 2nd. Texas Lutheran answers in the top of the 3rd to tie it up. Then it's 6-5 after 4. Concordia Chicago comes back and ties it in the bottom half of the 8th inning. Mike Formella comes on to try to close the game out, however long that might take in a tie game, and instead he comes in with inherited runners. Texas Lutheran ends up putting up a 3 spot in the top of the inning, and even though the Cougars got the tying run to the plate in the bottom half, they ended up, just a little bit too cardiac tonight.
Yes, as Mike Stasky said, it's a game of inches. Had their third baseman been inches away, he could have maybe turned a double play that would have taken the 3 runs off, and it would have been Concordia Chicago celebrating a victory. But instead, we have 2 games tomorrow.
I was really surprised that they still had Van Duzer up level with the bag with 2 strikes. I mean, it seemed clear to me that it was no longer going to be a bunting situation, and obviously 99% of this is hindsight, of course. But if Van Duzer hadn't been, merely 90 feet away from the plate, he might have had a shot to knock that ground ball down or maybe even turn the double play.
Well, I think there were lots of opportunities. Each team left 11 men on base, so it wasn't like they didn't have their opportunities to score a big inning. And that's the problem. It's with Concordia Chicago, they needed a big inning, and the coach says, we want to win the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th innings. And they did not win the later innings, so they're looking at one more game.
Another big night for Jose Mercado, 4 for 5 from his leadoff spot, scored a pair of runs, double, triple, and a pair of singles. So yeah, Texas Lutheran forces a winner-take-all game for the championship of Bracket 2. That game will be the second game on our docket on Monday. First game will be, of course, the rematch between Randolph-Macon and UT Tyler. That game starts at noon Central Time. The game between TLU and Concordia Chicago will follow that immediately or at 3:30 p.m., whichever comes later. These are teams that are now pretty deep into their bullpen. We could talk about whether Nathan Malinowski can come back for Texas Lutheran. As I'm counting up, that would be Saturday, Sunday. That's 2 days rest. That's probably not what TLU has in mind for him, so they'll probably be patching it through like they did on Sunday.
And Texas Lutheran actually still has quite a bit of pitching left, and so I would not be surprised to see if they can't find somebody and keep Malinowski on the bench and let him rest. They're going to need him for the series if they may win on Monday.
Yep, this is followed by a best-of-3 series. Now, since we have games to play on Monday that are not part of the D3CS, that means we don't start the championship series until Tuesday. On Tuesday, we will start it with a doubleheader. Someone could win the entire championship in a doubleheader on Tuesday. If there is a third game necessary, it will be played here at Fox City Stadium on Wednesday. So keep following all of the coverage on d3baseball.com. Lots of stuff out there. We had another 4 games. We'll be happy to have just 2 games on Monday. I'll be happy to have more than 4 hours of sleep. I'll be happy to get out of here before 2:30 in the morning, all sorts of things. But Jim, it's been so far a very memorable final Division III World Series in Appleton.
It really has, and this may be the first time that we play all 17 games in the series. We've already got the max from the brackets. And if the winning team goes 2-1, we're certainly going to reach 17 games, which are more games than ever been played in the Division III World Series.
That's true. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate that.
Yes.
Have a good night, everybody. I think we can close with that, sure. I'll just keep running we'll roll the credits after this.